Thank you. I'd like to call to order the Board of Education meeting for Lake Forest High School District 115. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Mr. Mormon?
Here.
Mrs. Kreiling?
Here.
Mr. Lane?
Here.
Dr. Elliott?
Here.
Mr. Schreiber?
Here.
Mr. Powers?
Here.
Mr. Markison?
Here. I'm returning us to open session, which was a line I forgot. First of all, thank you all for coming. I'd like to open the meeting by stating that your elected board members are very devoted representatives of this community. I'm confident that every board member volunteered for board service for the same reasons we all live here. We have and we highly value our great schools, and we love this community. We take our responsibilities very seriously, and we're doing what you elected us to do, ensure the tradition continues. I know this process has been frustrating to all because board members have been unable to discuss, clarify, or debate the issues raised. Please be assured we have read, studied, and analyzed everything. Your board is comprised of 7 very thoughtful, independent thinkers with the best interests of the community and the school at heart. Here's how tonight's meeting is going to proceed. Mr. Simic will present the superintendent's report. Following his report, we'll have time for public comment. Then the board will move back into executive session. Executive session is where by law all personnel matters are discussed. I ask for your patience. Executive session may take an hour or so, but we need to devote this time to thoughtful discussion. After executive session, we'll return back here to open session. I'd now like to ask Mr. Simic to provide his superintendent report at this time. Mr. Simic?
Thank you, Mr. Markison. There's been a great deal of speculation about the direction of some of our programs, our honors and AP programs in particular, and I'd like to address some of our actual data on what we have been doing. There are increases in access that we have right now. We worked very hard to accomplish. There's a 32% increase in our science AP participation from the fall of 2013 compared to the fall of 2014. For next year, there's actually a 400% increase in enrollment in AP English participation, that's spring of 14 to spring of 15. There's also correspondingly an increase in student success. Students are taking more challenging classes from spring of 13 to spring of 15. The enrollment in our pre-calculus classes rose by 44% for our juniors, and for our seniors, enrollment in calculus rose 23%. We also have 4 below grade level sections that were eliminated in math, English, and World Civ. We have 2 promising directions from this data. One is that we have an increase in students that are leveling up, as we call it, students that are rising to take more challenging courses. That's 14.8% more students are taking classes that are leveling up. We also have a 21% drop in students that are dropping a level. So at the same time, we have more students that are taking more challenging classes. We have a corresponding drop of students that are dropping down a level because they're not being successful. Our increase in overall AP enrollment rose from 1,117 courses to 1,441. That's a 29% overall increase in our AP enrollment from spring of 14 to spring of 15. Additionally, we have increased our AP offerings. For this coming school year, we have added 4 additional AP courses. We expect far more students participating in and being successful in our rigorous coursework and our AP coursework in particular, which aligns with our recently adopted mission and vision work. It's important to think about why we are undertaking these efforts. We believe that many students are capable of more rigorous coursework. This increases our students' participation in their chances of success in college. It also makes our students more competitive in the college admissions process. Finally, and significantly, this puts real dollars in many parents' pockets when students do well and their colleges and universities recognize those courses. A comparable district to ours, Rye, New York, Rye High School in Rye, New York, they have an 88% AP participation rate in that high school, and they have a 93% passing rate. Our high school, we have a 50% AP participation rate that is 38 percentage points lower with a 95% passing rate. That is 2 percentage points less than Rye, with 38 percentage points more students participating in AP. The board recently passed a mission and vision and milestones work. On that are some very ambitious undertakings. One of those, under achievement, is that we will be nationally recognized for achieving significant intellectual, social, and emotional growth for every student. And the key word there is growth, that every student grows. And that means your high students, your middle students, and your low students. That is a very hard thing to do. Under instruction, that our instruction will be real world, it will be inquiry-based, it will be interdisciplinary, and it will be highly collaborative. Again, very, very ambitious. And we've added a number of courses like the Innovation Incubator, recent robotics classes, and we've also added AP classes that drive at these things. It's very easy in a district like this to look at our school and say, it is great, don't change a thing, we just need to modify very slightly. The fact of the matter is that we have students that we believe that we can serve better, and it's a lot of students. A couple examples of that would be a high ability boy that is highly disorganized who is placed in low-level classes. Or many of our highest achieving kids have difficulty in two really critical things. Again, our highest achieving kids, they are risk averse like you cannot believe. They do not want to take a risk. And the other thing is that we have a really hard time growing their achievement. The highest kids and the lowest kids are hard to get to grow. And so what we're looking at is more personalized, more individualized, more challenging for every single kid in the district. Not some, not many, not most, but every single individual child in our district, that they will grow. So you don't add things at the bottom or lower things in the hope that you get more kids to do well. What it is a rising tide raises all boats. We have a large number of students, another example, headed towards careers in finance and business in this community. A large number of those students do not get to statistics and calculus at this time. And statistics and calculus are gatekeeper courses, not just for finance, not just for economics, but also in health sciences. And so we think that that number can increase. And we are working very hard to make those things happen. So the direction of the district is more opportunities for more kids with a great deal of support for kids high, middle, and low. And that completes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simic. Any comments or questions from the board? Before I open public comment, I'd like to remind you of the guidelines. Many of you who were at the last meeting heard me read these. All interested speakers should come to the microphone, state their name, and address the board. Please address the board, not the audience. In the interest of everyone's time, please limit your address to 3 minutes. The clerk has a timer, and she and I will remind you of that time frame. Everyone, including guests to our community, has the right, within reason, to be heard respectfully. Members of the public may not speak a second time until all audience members have been allowed to speak. My job is to ensure civility, reasonableness, and respect. No clapping, please, and I will use my gavel. I do not want to have to interrupt people with a gavel because of clapping. It's rude. I don't like to be rude. Public comment should not be redundant. The board listened carefully to public comment from the last meeting and reviewed information and opinions that have been posted and emailed. And if your point of view has been stated, please express your agreement rather than repeating what was previously said. listened to and taken under advisement. This is our time to listen. The public is always welcome to meet with the school officials to receive information, share ideas, and express concerns. I know I have. If anyone has any letters or written materials, please hand those materials to the clerk for the public record. And after a reasonable time, I reserve the right to end public comment. To be considerate of everyone's time, I anticipate we will close public comment and move to executive session at around 8 p.m.
Making public comment. So, are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? And if so,
Please come to the microphone in the front of the room and state your name.
Hi, I'm Tom Kinsley from Lake Forest. Thank you for this time. Recently, the board held a meeting where the public commented on the candidacy of Chayla Holland. Several of the speakers at that meeting were friends and colleagues of Ms. Holland. But these meetings should be the time for the residents of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff to have their say. The Lake Forest Board is expected to reflect the views and desires of the taxpayers and parents of Lake Forest, not out-of-town visitors. Following the last meeting, there were some in the press and social media who seized upon the exasperation of some residents to mischaracterize it as hostile booing, intending to intimidate or bully them. Some even tried to claim race was part of it. As these discussions continue, it is important that we all conduct ourselves with dignity and respect. It also means that supporters of Ms. Holland should not interpret the passion and views of the Lake Forest residents as anything other than concern for our children and our community. And while her supporters may come from a viewpoint where they see things in terms of race, we do not, and any attempt to imply that this is our motivation is disingenuous and destructive. What we want is the most qualified candidate to lead our high school and our children. We want a candidate who has a track record of success as a high school principal, and we want a candidate who has the highest integrity to serve as a role model for our children. Ms. Holland has made a career of working with students she feels are victims of institutional racism. What has never been answered to our satisfaction, though, is why she is interested in a job at our high school, and conversely, why the superintendent believes she is an appropriate fit for this community. We are left to wonder, given the views on her website and her attempts to cover them up, what is her agenda and what will LFHS look like under her stewardship? One clue may be to examine her connection to the Pacific Education Group, or PEG. Ms. Holland is clearly an adherent and supporter of this controversial group. In the minutes of an OPRF board meeting in 2011, the principal lauded Chayla Holland's, quote, extensive background in critical race theory and CCAR standing for Courageous Conversations About Race, the signature product of PEG. And in 2009, PEG even gave her an award at their Summit for Courageous Conversation meeting in Baltimore. And what is the Pacific Educational Group? They are a consulting group notorious for charging high fees to a number of school districts to provide very controversial advice and training on racial issues in education. What is really noteworthy is the turmoil that often follows their hiring. Two examples. One, PEG was featured just last week on Fox News during a report on the total breakdown of discipline in the St. Paul School District. The report noted that PEG consults for St. Paul and had advised them to reduce discipline of minority students. Two, in 2002, the Seattle school system was sued by parents for reassigning students based on race. The case ended up in the U.S. Supreme Court, who specifically derided Seattle's publicly posted definitions of racism, which had been provided by their consultant, PEG. Given Ms. Holland's past relationship and advocacy of PEG, it is likely that she would push for them to be hired as a consultant here, with potentially disastrous consequences. And to those who are thinking that's crazy, the board would never allow that. One can only respond, then how did we get where we are now with this applicant? To many of us, this seems like a bad dream. We see all the evidence more and more coming every day, and we just don't understand why Ms. Holland is still even being considered for the principal position. We keep wondering, what is it going to take before the superintendent and board put an end to this nonsense? We go through our lives assuming that those we've elected will act in a generally reasonable way and in our best interest, but then something like this happens, an irrational decision.
Sir, your time is up. Could you please conclude your comments?
Made behind closed doors and with no explanation to destroy our confidence in the system. And so here we are to see if and when our faith will be restored, and until it is, we remain engaged, watching, and ready to act. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cindy Kinsley. I came to Lake Forest by accident nearly 9 years ago. I was a single woman in Chicago a liberal of convenience in a heavily Democratic city. I even worked for Valerie Jarrett while I was at the CTA for many years. But that abruptly ended when I married my husband, Tom, who just spoke, a longtime Lake Forest resident. With plans for a child, we both agreed that Lake Forest was the place to call home. Lake Forest may be known by some for the mansions, its beach, quaint downtown, but what Lake Forest overwhelmingly means to the majority of its citizens is a safe and nurturing environment to raise our children. This is truly an idyllic community, and I've fallen in love with my new home. That is why it is so disturbing that the appointment of a principal has become such a major issue. It's hard to even call this a divisive issue because there seems to be such unanimity opinion in the community. The only division seems to be between the citizens and the school officials who are entrusted to represent us. It is just incomprehensible to myself and so many of us why this had to happen in the first place. Despite my liberal upbringing, I find the nomination of this candidate to be beyond the pale. It is painfully clear to everyone that Ms. Holland's lack of experience and extreme views make her an inappropriate candidate for the principal of Lake Forest High School. And it's a shame that this process has brought such ridicule and suspicion on our school system and our community. And this will not be resolved once Ms. Holland is appointed. It will get worse, much, much worse. And don't think for a minute that it hasn't. Scores of residents have expressed their outrage to me, and I'm sure to you. Through the district, citizens are mobilizing in person, by email, and by social network, and not just the social network in the public that the public sees, not just Facebook and comment sections on DNS. This is just the proverbial tip of the iceberg. There's a whole underground right now of social networks, private blogs, private networks, informal circles of friends and neighbors that have become more involved than I've ever seen in the last almost 10 years. And for every speaker at this meeting, there are hundreds who couldn't make it, on vacation already, felt their opinion was already expressed or didn't want to speak publicly because of the topic and the controversy. For every letter you receive, there are hundreds who feel the same way but didn't have the time to in their busy life to write one. For every one of the over 700 signatures on the online petition against this nominee, there are many more who didn't even know about the petition. I respectfully urge you to reject the candidacy of Ms. Holland and begin the search for an experienced principal that can provide our children with the best education possible without the underlying social agenda. It's time to cut our losses, not compound them. Thank you so much.
You know, guys, this isn't a bar.
Thank you for your time. I'm Aristidium DeVeris, a resident of Lake Forest. At the last board meeting, Mr. Simic told us that in 2 short months, he was able to post the job, review 20 candidates, and narrow it down to 1. We were told that this candidate is world-class by her professor. What world-class capabilities does this candidate have? She served as a history teacher for 7 years, now serves as an assistant principal at a high school ranked, according to U.S. News & World Report, 743rd in the country, 110 positions behind Lake Forest. We were told that the hurry to hire this individual was because she's such an outstanding candidate that she was in danger of being rapidly hired by others. How is this logical? The Lake Forest High School principal position is one of the highest paying positions in the country. Nationally, a high school principal earns an average salary of $84,000 to $98,000 a year. Individuals at the 90th percentile earn $120,000. This job pays $200,000. We should have the pick of the field. It is important to review the responsibilities that a successful candidate will have. Number 1, hiring, supervising, and evaluating school teaching staff. What sort of atmosphere will she create amongst our teachers when her integrity in sharing her views on race and education were expunged from the web? What will her agenda be in hiring, supervising, and evaluating school teaching staff? What qualifications does she have to evaluate our teaching staff? We have teachers at the high school who have undergraduate degrees from Stanford and other high-ranking universities, with most of our faculty having more years of teaching experience than the candidate you're bringing forth. Does she have the credibility? Does she have the credibility and experience to lead this group? Or will her own inexperience lead to hiring teachers of caliber lower than her own so she may preside over them? Responsibility number 2, establish academic and behavioral standards for students. On the basis of what successful track record does she have to come with us to establish academic standards? She's coming from a school that has a 67% proficiency in math, where many of her student subgroups have failed to reach the academic standards set forth by our state. What standards will she set on the basis of what experience? Responsibility 3, oversee school administration, curriculum, program, services, and resources. What programs will she initiate at our school? Is she qualified to drive the curriculum standards that will elevate our students' learning in math and science? She has no track record in achieving successful deployment of curricula and no track record in math or science, which you just stated is paramount to almost every job a student will take. It's the board's responsibility to ensure that the candidate has sterling credentials to take the helm at the principal of this high school.
Sir,
This
please wrap
candidate-
up. Can you wrap up, please?
I am. I'm wrapping right up. Last paragraph. This candidate does not have the years' experience, vision, or successful track record in curricula that we expect and demand for our children. We ask the board to return the candidate back from whence she has come and to bring forth more credible, qualified candidates for the education of our children.
You know, folks, the clapping doesn't help at all. At all. Please stop.
Hello, I'm Don Russ of Lake Bluff, and I take no pleasure in making these comments. Which raises the question, how did we come to this point? I would suggest that the process described at the 7 o'clock meeting by Superintendent Simic was flawed. He said that I understand that the final choice of this candidate was narrowed from 8 down to 1 in Shayla Holland by a committee of teachers. There were a couple of parents, a couple of administrators, but the committee was dominated by card-carrying members of the teachers union. Let's be clear, the stakeholders are the taxpayers of District 115. Yes, the parents and the students, but they're residents of District 115, so we're really talking about the taxpayers of District 115. The people who pay into the district are the stakeholders. The people who are paid by the district are not the stakeholders, they're the employees and the vendors. And while we would expect the teachers to discharge their duties properly, which would be in the interest of this board, their employer, and of the true stakeholders, the real estate taxpayers of District 115, still the interests of the teachers are not congruent with this board. We know that most visually from the spectacle of the teachers parading around 3 years ago with big yellow placards announcing that this board was unfair. That resulted in a teacher's contract in which there were minimal concessions made to the teachers union, and perhaps there's bitterness about that. In any case, that contract is up for renewal about a year from now. So I ask, is it possible that this committee dominated by teachers would be so enthusiastic about Shayla Holland's other qualities that they would overlook her lack of qualifying experience? And she does lack qualifying experience. Of the 13 school years since she finished her undergraduate work, a majority was spent, as was mentioned, as social science teacher in Evanston. She had 1 year at Evanston as an intern, 1 year as a director, functionaries in the administration. She then moved to her current job as assistant principal at Oak Park River Forest, which sounds like it might be qualifying experience, but it's not. Consider the Oak Park River Forest has a website, and the website has an organization chart, and the organization chart has been distributed to you. Notice the principal at Oak Park River Forest, Mr. Nathaniel Ruse. Well, I understand that we're finished. Shayla Holland has no supervisory experience. She has no budgetary experience, and I would pose the question, is it possible that the teachers would prefer an inexperienced, inept, ideological principal as their contract comes up again? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert Von Olen. I've been a Lake Forest resident for 20 years. I've parented 3 children through the entire arc of the Lake Forest school system, including 1 current high school student. As you know, the Lake Forest High School is one of the biggest assets of this community. The reason why this asset is so valuable is because, along with English, math, and science, our school teaches the core values of our community. The parents, the teachers, the administrators are called upon not only to instruct those core values, but they are called upon to demonstrate them to our children. The superintendent and this board are chartered with the responsibility of hiring key employees that reflect the core values of our community. Having lived in this great community for over 20 years, I can state unequivocally and with great confidence that as a collective, we believe in the recognition of merit as the core value of our community. We also believe and teach our children that candor, honesty, owning what you do, and owning who you are part of our core values. The recent events that cause us to gather here tonight in such number have shaken the confidence of this community insofar as this superintendent has strayed from our core values in misidentifying a potential leader of our children. I know these are harsh words, but what are we to believe of a secretive process that puts forward candidates who believe that meritocracy is just code for racist? What are we believed when we as an informed community try to learn more about such candidate and only find that the internet has been coincidentally scrubbed of meaningful information on websites and blogs within hours of the identification of this candidate? What happens is we lose confidence in process. We lose confidence in our appointed and elected leaders when our core values of candor, openness, disclosure, and personal ownership of one's history are not honored. We know that the world is a different place from when most of us went to high school. Maybe the world is not as comfortable for us as Americans, but overall the planetary standard of living is evolving, and it is evolving upward. And you know what? As Americans, we're okay with that. We know that we're not only competing with the student from the next town for a good job, we are competing in a global marketplace. And we know that that marketplace values merit, adaptability, and innovation at its core. I'll finish up here. If we don't teach our children that merit is a beacon, what will be substituted? Will our children become subjects of a social experiment that is inconsistent with our values? One is only left to wonder, what is the agenda of someone who is so vociferously against the notion of merit, and then to hide who they are from us?
Sir, could you please conclude your comments?
Yes, I will. But who so charismatically smiles and says, trust me with your children.
My name is Amy Hill. I live in Oak Park, Illinois. I am an administrator at Oak Park and River Forest High School. I have been for the past 11 years. Prior to that, I was a history teacher for 10 years. I'm here tonight to urge you to act in the best interests of your students, your primary stakeholders, respectfully disagreeing with the previous speaker, and confirm the appointment of Dr. Shayla Holland as the principal of Lake Forest High School. I'd like to suggest that in my 4 years of working with Dr. Holland, I've gained insights and experiences that far outweigh the mining of blogs and the internet searches that have been apparently frustrating for some of the members of your community. My experience with Dr. Holland has been a tremendous opportunity to learn as an educator. I have the utmost respect for her, and she's a beloved member of the community of Oak Park and River Forest High School. I have prepared remarks, but there's so much that's been said here tonight that I just feel passionately needs to be addressed. The idea that Shayla Holland has a hidden agenda would be easily dispelled by conversations with Dr. Holland. She is a passionate advocate for all students. She has a track record at Oak Park and River Forest High School of implementing programs to support all students, not just students who struggle, but all of our students. She has worked to expand opportunities for students to have access to rigorous curriculum. She has worked to expand our professional development so that our educators are giving our kids their absolute best every single day. It's difficult to imagine, honestly, that you will find a more highly qualified person to lead this high school than Dr. Shayla Holland. Dr. Holland listens to disparate views. She listens openly, she listens compassionately, she listens humbly. She weighs evidence, and she makes decisions and acts based on principle. And her primary principle, steadfastly, without fail, is what is best for students. Students are at the center of her work. They always have been, and I imagine they always will be. Dr. Holland approaches conflicts directly, with the confidence that she can lead towards solutions. She gets things done. She is bold enough to take calculated risks and humble enough to know that students are often her best teachers. I have met, interviewed, and worked with hundreds of educators in my 21 years. I do not believe, as I said, that you will find anyone better qualified, more passionate, more dedicated, harder working than Dr. Shayla Holland, and I hope that you will take advantage of the incredible opportunity you have tonight to confirm her appointment as the principal of Lake Forest High School. Thank you very much.
My name is Mary Ann Fowler. I have lived in Lake Forest for over 40 years. I'm a retired professor of education. I spent most of my adult life as an educator of all ages, from 3rd grade to returning adults at a university. I find that I agree with the superintendent's report, so what I say may be repetitive, but it's short. It is essential for students of all ages to be in a learning environment where they are challenged to achieve. It is also important for them to be where they have a chance of understanding and succeeding. To do both, each student's capabilities and interests must be determined and considered for class placement. This is a long-standing interest of mine. If I had been placed in an advanced physics class in high school, I would have been very frustrated and would have felt inferior as a result of my lack of achievement. Being a conscientious student, this would have affected me deeply. If my friend, who was a genius and interested in what was happening in the world at that time, had been placed in a basic science class, he would have been frustrated, bored, and angry at not being given the opportunity to learn to his potential. How could he later contribute to our country's needs for scientists without the education he should have been provided? Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Quick programming note. LFTV has asked that the speakers stand back from the microphone a little bit. Otherwise, the audio is a bit distorted.
Okay.
My name's Dale Miller, and I live here in Lake Forest. I see one big issue with this entire process, and respectfully, I think there's a lack of transparency involved here. We received an email saying at one point that essentially it would be illegal for the board or the district to turn over resumes and backgrounds on the various candidates. I must say, I've been practicing law in this state for about 30 years, and I find that to be dubious. But here's something that I'm extremely clear on. If the candidate agrees, you can give us the resume. If the candidate says they're okay with it, you can give us their writings, their background, whatever they have. So I want to make a modest proposal. Because the issue that is distressing these people, and I think the reason that many of these people are here, is the lack of transparency in this process, make it transparent. You talk about promoting on merit. Show us that you're hiring on merit. So why don't you go to the top 5 candidates, including Ms. Holland, of course, and say, would you be okay with us giving your resume and your written product, your background to the community? Because they would like to know, they would like to be part of this process. If they say yes, then you can keep them in the pool, and since it looks like you have one candidate anyway, if 4 others say no, one of them says no, just put a new one in. So I'd like to ask actually the audience to clap on this, because clapping's a good sign of approval or disapproval. So who approves of that?
As I said, I can end public comment.
Well, sir, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, we have no way of knowing the temperature or the feelings of the people who you are here to serve unless you allow them some form of expression. So I'd like to put it to this board, is that okay? Could we pause for just a moment, and could we involve this community in an open and respectful and transparent discussion, not only about Ms. Holland's background and resume, which I'm sure is wonderful because I've never seen it, but also about everyone else's. Could we do that? If we can't, then I ask you to please, you've seen the response of this audience. I'd ask you to please, for the betterment of this community, explain to us why you can't do that, why that's impossible. There is this group of students in this school and in other schools like this generation faces challenges that my generation never had to deal with, and neither did any generation before it. And I'll sit down after this, but I just want to say the focus of this hiring, I respectfully believe, should be finding a principal to lead these children in a creative, innovative educational process that will prepare them for those challenges. And we should be able to assess the credentials of all of these candidates as to whether they will be best suited to do that. Thank you very much.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jennifer Neubauer. I'm a graduate. I'm a graduate of Lake Forest High School and a parent that's now had her 4th child going through the school. And I would like to thank you for your time, your commitment, your energy. What you've had to go through for the past 3 weeks is way above and beyond the call of duty. And if anybody deserves a round of applause for treating our community properly, it's this board. I've already given the board 3 letters. I will make them part of the record here. I also have some letters from other people. So that would conclude my comments here. But I would ask that that the board, and I'm sure it is, takes note of this gym and the sentiment and needs and desires of this community and acts accordingly, and I know that you will. I have utter confidence in you. Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I'm Tom Freevert, Lake Forest resident with 2 kids at the high school. You've been tasked with making a hiring decision. Parsing through everything you've been hearing, reading, and discussing will undoubtedly make that task more complicated. My hope is to present a viewpoint that simplifies your job. In my experience, hiring a professional is based on 3 factors: education, experience, and fit, with each of those being more important than the last. Looking at the first factor, education, it appears the candidate offers the requisite type and amount. From an experience standpoint, while the candidate has worked in administration in a high school setting, I think many would more strongly favor a candidate who has held the position of principal previously, specifically in a high school, but even in any type of school. Fit, as I said earlier, may be the most critical, and opinions vary. However, without question, a large contingency is concerned about the fit of the candidate within the school and perhaps even the community at large. Cultural fit is certainly subjective. You might wonder why I feel that this is the most important of these factors. Instead of giving my view, I'd simply ask you to consider how many people you've worked with in organizations who had the appropriate education and experience, yet still didn't work out. The common factor is often fit. If this key hire is already coming in swimming upstream, how effective can they be? Lastly, at a highly ranked and highly regarded high school such as Lake Forest, what's the upside of taking a chance against the backdrop of deep resistance? I know that you care because you're here. I'm hopeful that I've been even slightly helpful. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, Superintendent, board members. My name is Joy Guscott-Mueller. I have been a resident in Lake Forest for over 21 years. My husband and I have a law practice here in Lake Forest and in Chicago. We've raised 2 daughters in Lake Forest. They're both a product of the Lake Forest public school system and graduates of Lake Forest High School. And I am also proud to say that I am an alumnus of Oak Park River Forest High School, having grown up in River Forest and Oak Park. And I'm here today, frankly, because I came across a flyer that was put on our car asking me to come and ask the board to not affirm the appointment of Dr. Holland and to ask for the superintendent's non-renewal. This was an anonymous flyer, and after reviewing that and reviewing all the letters and doing research and frankly seeing Dr. Holland's resume online, one only need look at her LinkedIn profile, I have come to do the exact opposite and ask you to confirm the appointment and also to retain Mr. Simic as the superintendent. The reason I'm doing this, I have 3 short reasons. Number 1, as a lawyer, I am suspicious of arguments that attempt to discredit and cast aspersions on a professional by cobbling together statements, historical facts that are taken out of context in an effort to advance one's own political agenda. With regard to one of those comments that was made in the flyer, I understand there were some comments made by Dr. Holland with regard to white privilege. And I have to put that in context. Dr. Holland has been an administrator for over 6 years at Evanston Township and at Oak Park River Forest High School, which I might add is an excellent high school. It provides coursework in over 22 advanced placement course subject areas, not including additional sections. But in that environment, both scenarios are highly socioeconomically diverse and racially diverse. And with Dr. Holland's credentials as with her PhD and her outstanding career at Northwestern, would be committing educational malpractice if she did not address the issue of white privilege as racial theory in attempting to improve student outcomes. And in her context and in her background and experience, it is totally appropriate.
Sorry, ma'am, your time is up. Can you please conclude your comments?
I certainly will. Finally, white privilege is not a concept that is new or foreign to Lake Forest High School. My children graduated 6 and 8 years ago, respectively. And the late, great, revered Dr. Gant in AP American History introduced the idea of white privilege to them and assigned readings in order for them to prepare for the AP Advanced Placement Exam for American History. It is part of our history. It
Sorry,
is part
ma'am,
of the larger context.
Could you please conclude your comments? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
So I would ask you to confirm the recommendation of the superintendent and appoint Dr. Holland as principal of Lake Forest High School. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the board tonight. My name is David Mueller. I'm an attorney in Lake Forest in Chicago. I'm a 21-year resident. As my wife indicated, raised 2 children through the Lake Forest school system. And I too am a proud alumnus of Oak Park River Forest High School. Hooray for the Huskies. This is the flyer I received on my car when I went to the library last night to return some books. It's a marvelous document. It's replete with errors, typos. It's also anonymous, but it contains smears, and it contains, as my wife indicated, just a cobbled together fever dream, very similar to the nonsense we've been listening here tonight. And it asks the community to come out and communicate to the board their feelings. My feeling that I want to communicate to you is you should reject this. This is not what the city of Lake Forest and the people of Lake Forest and this community are about, this kind of shameful behavior. And so I would ask you to treat this as the garbage that it is. Second of all, in 21 years, this has been an unprecedented amount of attention to the appointment of a staff member in our school system. I've never seen this. My wife was on the school board for 8 years and never experienced this. So this is truly unprecedented. I think the board has been very transparent, maybe to a fault, and I can only think of one reason for this scrutiny, and it brings to mind that perhaps we are very much in need of Dr. Holland's expertise. And so I would encourage you, and let's not have a heckler's veto here, I would encourage the board to accept Mr. Simick's recommendation. This seems to be a completely appropriate appointment of a qualified person. And as Mr. Simick's report indicated, is very consistent with the expansion of opportunities for all students in our school system. So I applaud you for that, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, I'm sorry. No, we're getting close to 8 o'clock. I'm just trying to get a gauge on how many more folks there are that would, okay. We'll extend it. We'll extend it a little bit, but I'd ask that people pick up the pace. I don't want to go much past 8:15. All right, I might just be nice. Come on, just. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Mary Eileen. I'm a resident of Lake Forest. I have 2 children in high school, Lake Forest High School, one in Sheridan. My in-laws are here. I grew up in this area. I had no intentions of speaking tonight, but I feel compelled to talk about the big giant elephant in the room. We just moved back to Lake Forest after living in the city of Chicago for 20 years, where my children went to school at CPS institutions. I find it egregious that the people that are running for this office aren't speaking for themselves. White privilege is as heinous to be thrown at a white person as other racial epithets are to other ethnic origins. This has nothing to do with race. This has to do with fairness, with openness, with disclosure, with the democratic process of due process and due diligence and truth. If in fact Dr. Holland does not agree with all of the things that were said, then please show us how it's otherwise. I am speaking on behalf of someone who has lived in a state of diversity for my entire life. Those of us who live in Lake Forest are not against diversity. We're not against challenge. We are not against academic or educational rigor. What we are against is a lack of communication, a lack of disclosure, and a lack of commentary on what we are trying to get to the bottom to. Once we have that, then you won't have 500 people coming to find out what exactly is going on here. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Thorner. I've been a resident of Lake Bluff for 35 years. Mine will be rather short. I just have some questions to ask the board in regard to the selection of Ms. Holland as the prime candidate to be hired as principal at Lake Forest High School. Were the resumes of principal candidates other than Ms. Holland shared with board members? Why wasn't a search firm used in searching for a principal? How has Barry Rogers reacted to his dismissal as principal of Lake Forest High School to that of superintendent of curriculum, which basically is Common Core, who was liked and highly respected at Lake Forest High School and considered to be one of the most outstanding principals on the North Shore? Was it fair to spring on the board this current principal controversy when most of the board is new and not enough time has passed for them to become educated in their role as board members? And lastly, why were only 2 individuals from the public sector involved in the interviewing process? I have an article that I wrote that was published at Illinois Review. It went all over Illinois. It was seen by hundreds of people, legislators and everything. And I would like to present it to the board as my written material, my contribution to this really controversy, which shouldn't really be. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Colleen McCluskey Von Olin, and I am a longtime resident of Lake Forest. And quite a few of the speakers tonight have been attorneys. I am an attorney as well. So I want to say this attorney, and I'm sure many other attorneys in this room would agree that we have a problem forming any opinion without all of the facts. So I second Dale Miller's suggestion that all candidates waive whatever right of privacy they have and submit their curriculum vitae and their resumes so that full disclosure can be made and the proper decision can be made for our children. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amelia Bartholomew. I speak to you as a Lake Forest resident, a concerned parent, a professor, and an educator for 20 years in an urban university. In the 2012 program for International Student Assessment, the high schoolers from Singapore had the highest math scores in the world. The US high schoolers were 32 countries behind. The story on science was not that much better. The United States ranked 26. Successful negotiation of our evolving global economy dictates that we strive to catapult our children to the top of these lists, not keep them buried at 33. Schools achieving national recognition for excellence are characterized by their specific efforts in enhancing knowledge of math and science in addition to excellence in other subjects offered. Lake Forest High School ranks 633 nationally, which means that there are 632 high schools that are better than us. One would think that we would find a principal candidate from a higher ranked school so that our students could benefit from the leadership and the years of experience from a leader in a school that does it better than us. In fact, one would consider not looking at schools that are ranked 400 or 500, but instead ranked in the top 50. Why shouldn't our children deserve a principal from a school that's ranked in the top 50? Instead, Mr. Simic has put forth a candidate with sparse experience from a high school that is ranked 743. It is hard to follow the logic on this selection. Does the candidate have a strong math or science background to equip our children for a global economy? Not really. She served as a history teacher for 7 years and recently stated on a LinkedIn that she earned a PhD in urban educational leadership from UIC through her, though I checked the UIC doctoral repository and there was no evidence of her thesis there. This PhD program states that graduates will become transformational leaders to build school capacity for dramatic improvements in student learning in urban schools. What transformation has this candidate been involved in as an assistant professor, an assistant principal at the Oak Park River Forest High School for the last 6 years? We know that the Oak Park River Forest has not made adequate yearly progress in the Prairie State Achievement Exam. We know the school's 5 student subgroups failed to achieve adequate yearly progress in reading and math and failed with 67% proficiency in a math and 75% proficiency in reading.
I'm sorry, we're just trying to give everybody time. Please
This
wrap up.
candidate fails because she does not have adequate qualifications or experience. She has a vote of non-confidence by the teachers who have more experience than she does as a teacher.
I'm a Lake Bluff resident, and I had 2 children graduate from Lake Forest High School in 2008 and 2010. The only reason I'm here is because I'm removed from everything, basically, but when I heard this, we survived the Jay Hoffman era, for those of you who had kids in this school, and I just felt that the community itself needs leadership, needs stronger academics, and has to pull together. So I came because I would like to see probably a more open forum. I don't know what you do or don't do. I don't know why you couldn't have a panel discussion with the 3 final candidates or something, but I want it run more like a business, more objectively. I have no comment about the individual candidate or you guys because I really don't know, but I would like to see the community get the absolute best talent they can get because the school really needs leadership and to continue the strong academics. Thank you.
My name is Rob Rourke. I am the father of Michael Rourke, the freshman who started the petition. I live in Lake Forest. Thank you firstly for the board, your work on behalf of the students of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. I know emotions are very high here, and I can only imagine the amount of stress this situation has imposed upon you. I appreciate you taking into account the perspectives of the community on this very important decision. To me, this decision, however, isn't one of race. This is a question of simply 2 things: credentials and alignment with the goals of the community. On the question of credentials, I have to believe a school system such as Lake Forest can find a leader who will not learn the role on the job. We're a community with the resources, the talents, and the budget that should allow us to attract some of the most experienced and qualified candidates throughout the country. To me, I want someone with a track record of having done it before, not somebody who will learn the role as he, she goes. I understand the argument that everybody has to be a principal for the first time, at some time, but I don't think the argument is quite right. It would be akin to saying just because somebody is ready to be a CEO at a company, they're ready to be the CEO at Apple or Amazon or any other leading organization as their first job. Those organizations, shareholders, and stakeholders would howl at the prospects of such an argument. That's what's happening here. Our community is demanding experience. As far as common alignment with goals, that's more subjective. Whose goals are we aligning to? If you listen to the community, the goals would appear pursuing academic excellence as evidenced by the mission statement of the high school, which is to develop compassionate, confident, and accomplished students. These are fantastic goals. Who could argue with them? But the candidate doesn't espouse those goals. For nearly a decade, the candidate has stated goals of solving perceived racial inequity through changing curricula, notably through the removal of tracking and other programs, which are the byproduct, in her words, of white privilege. The positions of the Lake Forest community and the positions of the candidate are largely at odds with each other. And if the social remedies are overwhelming, and the social remedies are the overwhelming passion of the candidate, and I frankly applaud her for trying to address them, then presumably they would have far more impact in a community where racial inequity exists. Lake Forest is not that community. The broader society would be better off with the skills and passions reaching an audience where it will make a difference. One final thought. I sit on boards of several organizations. If I had a potential senior hire for a key leadership position, and the hiring process was so contentious that there was a massive backlash, and my customers, shareholders, employees, from my customers, shareholders, employees, I could not fathom a situation where I could in good faith ignore that input. The petitions here, the one my son started, and the counterpoint petition in support of the candidate, have collectively 740 signatures from the community. Of the two petitions, my last sentence, okay. Of the two petitions, the one supporting the hiring of the candidate has 9 signatures. 9. That means 98.7% of those making their voice heard oppose this outcome. If that isn't the definition of backlash, I don't know what is.
Mr. Simic, board, and all, I would like to also address all those in here inconsequentially. But I would like to say a couple things. First of all, I live in Lake Forest. I live just 3 houses down from the high school. I live on Willow Street, so I see all the people there in the track there. What I would like to say is twofold. One is I work at an international bank in which I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning to speak to Hong Kong, to speak to Turkey. I go to work in Mettawa and I come home, and this is about as racially diverse of a group that we have, and I think it's kind of rather silly that we kind of have to have this discussion about race. After all, what year is it? 2015? I thought we were way past that. But the reason why I say that is for a couple reasons. One is I think that the opposition, the biggest opposition comes not from race, comes not from teaching merit, although that is a problem. It comes from neither is it a question of her personality, because believe me, the guy behind me is just going to tell how good she is. And I'm sure she's a wonderfully nice person, and I could probably sit down and enjoy her and talk with her and have a great conversation. I could probably be her neighbor. But at the end of the day, what we see and what we know about it, which admittedly is limited, is about the ideology, the social justice, the white privilege, the very far, what I think left ideology. You know, I don't consider myself a hard-voting conservative or liberal Democrat, but I feel like we're picking somebody but from as far from the political mainstream as you can get. Now, I know that this is a school and it's not here to be politics, and I feel bad that I have to even bring this up because I don't feel like the school board is a place for politics. I think it's a place, as you were talking about, to help the children learn. Having said that, I think politics, picking somebody from so far that ideology where social justice is a big opportunity, also makes the rest of us feel like the opposite of social justice is collective punishment. So I feel like we're being collectively punished for whatever reason, white privilege. I'm still trying to figure out what it is, because I've never got it. So my wife can tell you, she's never had it. She's from Peru, and So I'm still trying to figure out where this white privilege is, and if somebody can please tell me, I'd like to buy some of that. So anyway, that's all I want to say. I want to say, but unequivocally, I support what was said. I do not like the PEG group, which is a far-left organization which has ulterior racial motives for things. I think it is, we're in 2015, we should be able to get past that. I mean, I've lived in Toronto, I've lived in New York City, I've lived all over the world, and I've never found more divisiveness than at this board meeting right now.
Thank you. Just real quick, I want to be I want everybody to speak. I want to give everybody the chance to speak. I want to be respectful of everyone's time and schedules and get everybody home to their families. So please, we've heard you. If you have the ability to listen to what was heard and not repeat what was said, I would appreciate it. And I'll try and give everybody a chance. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Flanagan. I live in Evanston. I do not live in Lake Forest. I have, can you hear me better? I have had the pleasure of renting our coach house to Shayla Holland for the last 14 years. I'm one of the 2 people that has ever spoken to Shayla, that's spoken tonight. And when I was here last time, people wanted to know a little bit about her character, so I'll tell you a little bit about her character. I'm not an expert in tracking. I'm not an expert in process. I'm not an expert in the things that you are entrusted to do. But Shayla Holland, I've seen her, she's come from a wonderful middle-class family from Philadelphia. She earned a full academic scholarship and athletic scholarship to Northwestern. She is a very accomplished athlete. I've seen her receive her undergraduate degree, her master's degree, and a PhD by the time she was 32. She works long and hard hours. She is very dedicated to education. I know that she helped me educate and raise my 5 kids. And it was, she's been an amazing leader in the community and a true role model to so many other people. Let me tell you what she's not. Shayla Holland is not a racist. She doesn't hate white people. I think if she hated white people, she would not be going for a job at Lake Forest High School. She is not inflammatory. She's got wonderful character and is somebody that I would entrust, and I have entrusted, to help raise my children. And as I've read the things that have been said online about Shayla in the last 3 weeks, I'm shocked that people would take the time to write this stuff with so little context and so little understanding of that person. I just want to tell you, Shayla Holland has the character to lead in this community.
My name is Jim Wagner. I'm a Lake Forest resident for 20 years. I have a son in the high school. I can only assume that everybody in this room wants the same thing for our kids. We want them to do better than last year's kids. I don't think that's asking too much. It also seems to me that the job of the superintendent is really quite clear and straightforward. We want him to increase our kids' scores. We don't need a superintendent to help our children form their so-called worldviews. That's our job. Where are their parents? We do that. We don't care what your worldview is, and you don't care what ours is. We don't want you to be our kids' worldview. We want them to be taught to read, to write, to solve analytical problems, to think analytically, to excel academically. We're not asking for our children to be given any political agenda, right, left, or anywhere. It's inappropriate. This is school, not politics. The fact that politics are so involved in this whole decision makes everybody suspect. As far as our kids go, if this is the candidate, the best candidate that our superintendent can find, maybe we need a new superintendent, because this is really poor. Her qualifications should have excluded her from even being judged as an applicant. But no, she rose to the top, which can only be one of 2 possible things. Either our superintendent is grossly incompetent in performing his duties, or you, sir, have your own political agenda that you're trying to push on us. We don't want it. We don't want it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brad Seaman. I'm a 16-year resident of Lake Forest. I will be done in 90 seconds. If I'm not, you can gong me. How's that? I'm against the hiring of Dr. Holland. I'll try to be brief. Why am I against the hiring? First of all, leadership is tough. For every Steve Kerr that exists in the world who gets his first managerial job and leads his team to the finals, there are legions of people who failed in those first leadership jobs. I know. I've personally hired more than 15 chief executive officers and chief financial officers for companies. I have a very good understanding of what works and how the hit rate is low. And so for people's initial leadership jobs, they get small steps. They lead small teams, small groups, and then they escalate those leadership skills into more important roles. We have, in the case of Dr. Holland, we've run a process whereby, if I understood Mr. Simic properly, we posted information in an industry publication that the job was open, and we received 20 applications, and that was the pool. When we seek out chief executive officers, we hire a world-class search firm. We identify the best companies in the industries that we compete in. We target the people who have produced the best results, and we pay them whatever it takes to get them to come and lead our companies. And it works. It's a time-proven way of going about it. So I guess simply said, from my perspective, the process of getting to today was flawed. Secondly, I find Dr. Holland's published comments, and I don't know her, so I don't know whether this is representative of her views or not, but they're very offensive to me. I'm not going to list them and try to elicit, hoots and howls from the audience, but I find them to be very, very uncomfortable. I don't like it, and I don't think it's representative of what happens here in this community. Third, I've gone over my 90 seconds. Third, if Dr. Holland is given this job, she will have hiring and firing authority, as I understand it, within the context of Lake Forest High School. So, if the concerns that the people in this room have about her ideology are correct, she'll have the ability to hire like-minded people into other administrative and teaching positions, and over time, we'll have a significant change in the culture and environment at Lake Forest High School. I request that you do two things. First, that you not ratify the contract for Dr. Holland. Second, that you retain a world-class search firm, you identify the best people in the United States, and you pay them whatever it takes to get them to come here.
Okay, excuse me, sir. Sorry to interrupt. We're going to take three more public comment.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Glenn Arnold, and I've been a resident here for 28 years. It's really kind of sad that the Lake Forest High School superintendent and the board, whose policies have sparked such an outrage here these days. But, going back to the old-fashioned way of doing the right thing, that's probably the most important thing to really be concentrating on. Right down the middle with accountability and transparency, that doesn't exist anymore in my mind. I also think that citizen parents and other stakeholders must raise the level of oversight going forward. The board serves the citizens and serves the citizens as an advocate on policy, not in reverse. I believe that the leadership and their implied philosophical agenda and track record of these two school districts over the last 15 years of observation, starting with Harry Griffith's reign, has not improved between the citizens and the school districts. In fact, I'm less confident that they're doing the right thing, and that's not happening right now. The solution, amongst all the other great solutions that have already been offered, is mandating that all information policy, changes to policy, plans to change policy as examples be detailed and available immediately through both websites, as well as a sign-up capability for all citizens to be updated as any processes progress. Thank you.
Well, this is a bit of history. If you can see by my wrinkles, I have lived here for almost 50 years. My name is Pat Kammerer. I have 5 kids that graduated from Lake Forest High School. My husband, who's up there wondering what in the world is going on, was on the school board for 6 years and president for 4. During his tenure, they needed to hire a new principal. So they searched, and they came up with a man named Hank Bangser, if you know Hank. Somebody said, why hire him? He's way too qualified. And the board said, why not hire the best when you can get them, even if he has to come from New Jersey? So Hank Bangser was the principal at Lake Forest High School, and then after many successful years here, he went on to become superintendent at New Trier High School. So I just think you should have an idea of the quality of the people that have been principals and superintendents at our high school, because it's a fabulous, fabulous high school, and we're all happy and we're lucky to have it. And I think you people up there will probably listen to your conscience, look at this huge crowd here, and understand that you really do represent us. You sort of give up your own individual agendas, or whatever you want to call it. And you really have to think that you were elected to do a job, and it's really to represent us, the citizens and the taxpayers of this town, okay? Thank you.
I see some cutting in line, so I'm not going to cut people off. Yeah, everybody who's in line can speak.
Would anybody
3 more?
like to go? No? Certainly, as all of you know, my name is Dick Block, and for those who don't know, I'm the immediate past president of this board. I stand here not to either espouse or speak against the appointment of Dr. Holland. Frankly, I don't know enough. You guys do, and girls. I want to thank you for volunteering to put yourself in this position and take on this responsibility. You are the only people with the authority to make this decision. I know each of you, most of you, quite well. And I want you to know I trust you. I know where your hearts and souls are, and I know that they reside in what's in the best interest for the children of this community and the community as a whole. So again, thank you for serving. Thank you for submitting yourself to this. I'd like to think that everybody feels that there's been an open dialogue here, that everybody who had something they wanted to say had the opportunity to say it, either at a board meeting or through social media, et cetera. You all are the most knowledgeable people in this room about this decision. Whatever you decide, I want you to know I will trust it, and I will support it, and I'll do everything I can to give it the best chance to work. And I hope everybody else in this room and in the community as a whole will have the same attitude. We've had a good dialogue. It's time for a decision. Let's move on. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Chris Munns. Not only am I a parent, I'm an alumni. I should say most importantly I'm a parent, but also have the perspective of being a principal. And wanted to share with you and thank them because they don't get paid to do this. So I appreciate the board being here tonight. I do want to just make sure that I've been in a system for 14 years as administrator, as a principal, and I feel that I've been successful because I was transparent and I want to make sure that you all are extremely transparent. And where I feel that there was a fall in the process was that we were asked as parents to fill out a survey, and the survey was never shared with us. And I understand that you do not want a candidate that would be persuaded into answering questions as an interview to be around that perspective, but I would really appreciate the fact of somebody on the other side is, hey, is this a good fit for me to be at this school? So I just want to make sure that transparency is very clear. You will gain the trust of this community as you will be moving forward. The other thing I wanted to just talk about is you have an incredible, I have a daughter who went through freshman year, and of course, me going through the high school, you have an incredible staff that is extremely talented. And a lot of people that are in this building that hold a Type 75 that are qualified to be a principal. Not that I want to see Barry go as a former colleague, but would love to have you reconsider maybe hiring within that understands this community, that understands the needs of our children, and to make sure that we continue to challenge all children, no matter what level that they are at. That is my challenge every day at school, and I hope that it is exactly the same challenge that you have. I wish you best of luck, and again, as a person in the education world, that you will choose wisely and really take in the perspective of all these comments that have been made over the process, and be aware of how the community feels. I wish the best of luck to this candidate if this is the final challenge. I wish her the best luck because I really feel that she will have an uphill battle if she lands the job here. Good luck. One more speaker.
Good evening. My name is Becky Freeman Murray. I was on the Lake Bluff School Board for 8 years. I've had 3 kids go through Lake Forest High School, and I'm a family therapist. Everything that has been said is important, but there is also kindness, tolerance, compassion, and understanding. And I am so embarrassed for this poor woman to have sat through such disrespectful discourse. And I don't believe that there were flyers put out and a lot of people came, but I know there's a lot of people in Lake Bluff and Lake Forest that believe in kindness and civility and compassion and understanding. And she sounds like a wonderful person. I don't know enough to know whether it's a good fit, but our children are watching, our children are listening, and it is so important that we teach them those values too, as well as this fast tracking. Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments. As I mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, we are now going to adjourn to executive session. Once again, I ask for your patience. It's hard to gauge how long we'll be gone. It may be an hour or 75 minutes or so. But one more speaker. Okay. One more.
My name's David Fontana. I live in Lake Bluff. I got a son who's going to be a senior. I don't know enough to make an informed decision about the woman you're going to hire. What I know is that most of the community doesn't want it, and common sense would say you shouldn't take it if they don't want it. But what I also know is I've spoke to a lot of kids who are going to be seniors, and none of them want this. So not only is it the parents, but it's bringing down the morale of the kids. This is all the kids talk about. If you don't care about what the parents think, I'm letting you know that's what the kids think. You should take what they think into effect also. Thank you.
So,
I spoke earlier, but I
No,
just have one
I'm sorry.
question. Can we find out whether Shayla Holland does or does not have a PhD? That seems to be a question that everyone has.
As I said, once again, I ask for your patience. The executive session may take up to 75 minutes. May I have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'd like to return to open session. Mr. Superintendent, may I call on you for a recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Marcuson. I want to go through the rationale for my recommendation. First, I want to begin with what was an extensive process and one that is characteristic of processes in this community and in other communities. It began with an international posting in Ed Week. There were 20 applications. There were 8 first interviews, and there were 13 people that comprised the second interview. That interview team included people from every single department in the school, administrators and parent representatives, and that narrowed down to one finalist. We then conducted a site visit, which created some of the, I don't know what you would call it, some of the different directions that the community went in, and others. When we did a site visit, we went to Oak Park River Forest to visit Dr. Holland's workplace, and we met with dozens and dozens of people there. What happens with that is we're in the middle of a confidential process, and during a site visit, our people, during the interview process, our people are bound by confidentiality rules, and our candidates are bound by that. And candidates apply in no small numbers because it is a confidential process. So if you do not have a confidential process, you have a markedly different talent pool. Only people who are willing to submit themselves to a public, everything they're doing being public, and because of that, you have a far diminished talent pool. So we did a site visit. We took on that site visit board members and teachers and administrators and also students. We also conducted a great many reference checks, including her former superintendent, her current superintendent, current supervisors, numerous other contacts at Evanston Township High School and Oak Park River Forest High School. We have a lot of personal contacts with people who live in our community that know people in Evanston and know people, employees and others in Oak Park and River Forest as well. We toured the building on our site visit, including the Academic Support Center, which is something that supports students where they receive assistance in all kinds of academic areas, including college acceptance letters and processes on how to apply for those things. We have additional contacts, a network of connections between our staff and places there, as I mentioned. What is important from that is the emphatic responses that we got from former co-workers and people that knew her or knew about her through others. The overall theme: she is an exemplary educator, she is a rock star, she is a rising star. You are incredibly lucky to find her, and there was unanimity among that. The themes from the reference checks were, to quote, "You are very lucky." To the question, "Would you hire her again?" each of the people responded instantly. She has an incredible work ethic. She's a strong builder of student and teacher relationships. She's very bright. She is very capable. From her teachers, she made me a better teacher. She is unafraid to challenge people to get better, no matter whether they're new teachers or senior teachers. There's a tremendous outpouring of support for her from her current and her former staff, and they speak of her effectiveness. Some of the criteria that we had, the survey results, I want to address that as well. We conduct a survey, and the results of that, the top things from the survey were warm people skills. Someone who has warm people skills, somebody who's easy to talk to and is approachable, somebody that listens carefully, someone who's visible in and active through the community and within the school, is knowledgeable about curriculum and instruction with a deep understanding of how students learn. Now, we don't talk about these survey results prior to the end of the survey because we don't want the candidates to read the survey things that we're looking for and then model their responses to our questions from them. There's also one of the things that created Quite a disturbance was the website, the issue of the website. We discussed this at length with Dr. Holland. It was taken down. It contributed to distractions, a good deal of distraction. There's no content on it that has not been seen, and others will speak to that here briefly. Questions of whether or not Dr. Holland is a good fit for the community. She was attracted because the emphasis that we have on social emotional wellness at our high school. This is something that began in no small measure because of the student tragedies we had not too many years ago. And it is a continued point from our mission and vision work. That is something that is really important to people in our community. She is an extremely effective listener. One of the things that she talks about is, look, everybody's got a story. I've got mine, and every kid that walks into the building has a story too, and it's always different. She also attended a high-performing high school. Importantly, she increased access to and success in rigorous coursework consistent with the work that we are doing to create more opportunities for more kids. On the issue of whether she is qualified, she has exemplary teaching experience. She has 2 different administrative roles in which she performed exceptionally well. She had numerous leadership positions of various types. One of the other questions that has come up is why she does not have principal experience. Highland Park, Glenbrook North, and Vernon Hills in the last year hired principals for each of their high schools. All of them were former assistant principals, as was our former principal, Jay Hoffman. He had not been a principal before. He went from being the dean to the interim principal to the principal. On the issue of whether or not she has supervisory experience, she is an assistant principal with a very substantial role in a high school twice as large as our high school. She currently supervises all division heads. We would call them department chairs, so they all work under her. And she writes or assists in writing all division head evaluations. She is over the Academic Learning Center. She is over the literacy coaches, the reading and math programs in her school, and also the response to intervention program, which is a program that is designed to try to get kids to perform at or above grade level who are struggling. She writes many staff and faculty evaluations as well. The net of this is that I believe that not having Dr. Holland as our principal would be a tremendous loss to our community, most particularly our students. I believe she is a unique individual who best met our search criteria and the criteria of the committee and is ready to do the job. Her interviews, her resume, and her accomplishments make her our best candidate, and that is my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simic. May I have a motion to approve the principal Shayla Holland 3-year performance-based contract for a salary of $160,000 per year?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Before I ask for a roll call vote, during the roll call vote, I would like to ask each board member, that is, if they would like to comment. Please vote and then make any comments before that vote. Comment, then make a vote. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Schreiber?
Aye. Sorry, that was a little confusing. My name's Dave Schreiber. I was born here. My parents live in Lake Bluff. Been on the Board of Education for 2 years. And I can tell you this is very emotional for everybody. So, if you see my hand shaking. For those both familiar and unfamiliar with the Board of Education meetings, it's hard to understand why questions from public comment are not directly answered. The short answer is that while the public may spend time preparing really good questions, the Board of Education won't necessarily have the same luxury with our answers on the spot. While we may have individual views, the full board may not have had time to consider the policy implications. The administration is available to provide those answers during their office hours after they've had time to do the relevant research and inform the board. Beyond that, and it seems like a good time with a large captive audience, we need the very best available community members to volunteer as board members. Today the issue is around a new principal, but tomorrow it will be something else. What I've learned from this particular issue is that there's not a wide understanding of the board's role. So what does it mean to serve as a board member? The board spends time with data and facts as they're made available before they take the field. Like any good team, the Board of Education and administration spend time preparing for game time. The game, or public meeting in this case, is both a legal obligation and a way to provide transparency to the constituents. This preparation makes the public meeting more efficient, but it can appear like a rubber stamp. In addition to the data, there's a healthy discussion on what's best for the students, faculty, and taxpayers. The board then decides the direction to take and does so in a time frame that does not paralyze the admin from executing on the district mission. There are typically good questions about how much money should be spent, on what, why, a few answers to the recurring themes. Why do we pay so much? The salaries are market-based. Why are we experimenting on the students? The academic trends are assessed for their evidence to produce targeted outcomes. Why do we spend what we spend? The capital investments and budgeting are based on conservative estimates to make sure the board won't have to raise taxes any more than CPI inflation, which we've got to cover that. And for our size, we've got tremendous services. How did you come to these decisions? It's all done in a collaborative way, with checks and balances based on established policies, procedures, and legal considerations. If I hit the 3 minutes, Eileen, you know, I'm almost done. Have you considered the impact of safety? Safety, emotional and physical, always need to be and are considered. As for the constituents, input from all is welcome. Running the district off Facebook posts may be easier, but we should want one that's run off data-driven decision-making. Most personnel, student, labor negotiation information has limited public access, and there's reasons for that, legal reasons. However, because the board has access to all this information, they're able to look at all sides. To be clear, the board represents the community, and no one in this community is looking to ruin the school. If the community needed to vote on each item, however, or even just the big decisions, nothing would get done. That's why we elect the board members, often with the caucus having provided the candidates. Another vetting step. That said, the system is not perfect. The admin and teachers, however, happen to be really good. Also, there's a plan for continuous improvement that gets regular review, and the board serves in a governance role to ensure it keeps getting better. That's what I mean. That's what it means to serve on the board. All that said, why would someone applying for a job have a side business promoted on a website? What was it, and why was it taken down? Is there a question of character, of saying one thing there and another thing here? Well, I'll tell you, I met her. And set aside for a moment that the content of the website may have included references to an established body of research. It was taken down because she did not have the time for this side business, never did. Something she formed with her.
Let him speak.
It was taken down because she did not have the time for this side business. Nothing to hide. It simply isn't relevant. And it raised questions about how she would have time for a consulting business and be a principal. Simple. She took it down because she does not have the time. If you want the transparency and the answers, you can't boo them. What's...
Keep going, Dave. Keep going, Dave. You're doing fine. Finish.
So, yes, it had the appearance.
Let him finish.
Not because there was anything to hide. Yes, it had that appearance. However, jumping to conclusions is both easy and dangerous. Full disclosure, I am resigning later this summer to relocate for a job. I am available for more friendly discussions, and I have with people interested in understanding why. Thank you.
Your vote, Dave?
Aye.
Mr. Powers.
Good evening. Just a couple very brief comments. First of all, I appreciate everybody's comments. The phone calls, the neighborhood conversations, the emails, the talent within this community is unprecedented. Our kids see it, our teachers see it, our teachers and parents get to participate in it together, and I think that's what makes this community great. I appreciate the homework that people do, even when I don't agree with them or they don't agree with me. And I think it's incredibly important that you all know that from my heart. There is not one thing about this process that I like. We'll have to deal with that at a later date. I'll be intimately involved in that conversation along with my fellow board members. But I want everybody to know we are about developing compassionate, confident, and accomplished students. And I believe in that solely because I believe in our teachers and I believe in the direction we're going. We have to be better. We aren't where we want to be. I've had the privilege to get a chance to meet Shayla, and I am voting in favor of her nomination. And Shayla, I'm voting on you, your professionalism, your courage, your ability to sit and be part of what is going to be your new community with an uphill battle. There's no doubt about it. My biggest concern in full transparency was the ability to lead and navigate through this, and we're going to have to do it together because we're not going to do it alone. Thank you.
Dr. Elliott?
I too want to thank the community. I realize there's deep passion about this issue, and I read every email and searched my soul, and this has been an extremely challenging process with a couple of other members. We're only a month onto the board, but it's great to see democracy at work. And I have a few comments. The reason that I ran for the school board was to help make the most of these tremendous resources that we have at Lake Forest High School. I'm a parent of 2 Lake Forest graduates and 1 current student, and I feel very strongly that our students need to be challenged more academically, and that this current movement, increasing access to AP courses, increasing STEM courses, and a higher level of thinking is the right direction to be going in. And everything that I've learned about Dr. Holland tells me that she supports this goal, and she has worked in her prior positions very hard to increase students' access to more challenging curriculum while providing the academic support and teacher training to ensure that they will succeed. So I know a lot of people have been interested in Dr. Holland's website, and I would like to point out one thing that I read that might be a little different. Dr. Holland wrote, "I've never met a student who doesn't want to be successful, and I've never met a parent who doesn't want their child to be successful." And I think that is a sentiment that everyone in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff would agree with. So I also just wanted to add that as a faculty member at the higher education level, I'm an associate professor of neuroscience at Chicago Medical School of Rosalind Franklin University. I appreciate that a discussion of diversity and inclusion is long overdue in this community. Our kids are heading off to universities that look very different from Lake Bluff and Lake Forest. And I hope that our students can learn from this process how to embrace other viewpoints and collaborate productively with peers from different backgrounds. I vote in favor of Dr. Holland's position.
Mr. Mormon?
First, I must say it is unfortunate this whole process has become so contentious and has split the community. It is further unfortunate that the vetting of the candidates may have been misunderstood by the community. The board has strived to say what we can say. As a point of clarification, Principal Rogers is not being dismissed. He's actually promoted within the district to an assistant superintendent position. Dr. Shayla Holland is a strong candidate and competed favorably against the pool of other candidates for the position of Lake Forest High School principal. While still early in her career, she has the potential to be a star in the right environment. Is Lake Forest High School the right environment? I am very concerned her training, education, and professional endeavors up to this point have been entirely focused on a different type of an educational institution with different needs, visions, and goals. For these reasons alone, I am not in favor of voting for this contract, as it will be difficult for this candidate to be successful with the already contentious atmosphere she's going to have to overcome to successfully lead the institution into the future. My concern is to do what is best for the students of Lake Forest High School and vote my conscience, whether it is comfortable to do so or not. However, regardless of my personal concerns and questions, I fully support and stand behind the decisions of my fellow board members. Thus, as my fellow board members vote to approve the contract, I do ask the community to welcome Dr. Holland and stand behind her and make every effort to assist and aid her as she endeavors to serve the young adults of our community. To do less is to not support our young adults and the community she will be serving. And we are a great community, and she will be a good addition. But like I said, I am voting no.
Mrs. Skreiling.
A wise and well-respected former board member told me that all decisions made by the Board of Education for District 115 should ask the question, is it good for the kids? Over the past 3 weeks, I have read every newspaper article, blog, email I have received. I've been to 2 board meetings where all of you came and shared your concerns, and I feel like we have heard the concerns from the community. Being on the school board, I did have the opportunity and privilege to meet Dr. Holland and hear her story. I also had the opportunity to visit her current school. I heard from numerous teachers and parents about the positive impact she had made. I also saw the physical spaces she created to assist the students. There's a school-wide support center offering assistance all school day long on everything from classroom instruction to college applications. The room was full and the students were engaged in learning. Dr. Holland strongly believes that the social emotional well-being of the whole student and he is in ensuring that he or she has access to the best education. These beliefs match our mission and vision goals for the district. Dr. Holland has been through a rigorous selection process. She has been interviewed and vetted by community members, teachers, staff, and administration. After hearing both sides of this debate and armed with as much information as I can, I believe that my kids would be lucky and would benefit in numerous ways to have Dr. Holland as the principal at Lake Forest High School. Please give Dr. Holland a chance to tell her story and explain why she is the right person to lead our school going forward. After all, it is all about the kids and helping them to be the best they can be. I vote yes.
Mr. Lane.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you for sharing your opinions and giving your time tonight. I'm your neighbor. I am trying to support what's best for all of us as parents and taxpayers. I live in Lake Bluff. I'm the proud father of 3 kids, great kids. I was asked to interview at the caucus, and I got nominated by my neighbors, and I ran unopposed. So here I am, and I was elected. I'm new to the board, as I just said, and was unaware of the principal's search and the status of it when I signed up to the caucus and signed on to represent you as a board member. Therefore, it's obvious I came in with no preconceived notions or even what the mission would be immediately. I came into the position, however, with the impression that Lake Forest was a smooth operating, good school that is an ideal environment for my children to grow and learn in. Actually, one of the aspects of my job that I look forward to working hard at and anticipated would be the primary role I would serve as a representative of our taxpayers in Lake Bluff. I felt like the curriculum is strong, and if there was any opportunity for improvement, it would be in trying to bring as much fiscal responsibility to the role as I could while not jeopardizing any aspect of the education. So that said, I've been cast into this process, as many of us have, fairly suddenly. And so I've taken this very seriously. I've listened to all of you. I've read every note. I've taken every call. And as I told you, I've invested in this. Initially, I had some concerns about the candidate myself. I saw what you saw. I read what you read. But I invested more time into the process. I did review her resume. I was impressed by it. I considered what people were saying. I talked to all the board members, as many people who were involved in the interview process as possible. At the last meeting, I insisted that we delay the process, not because I felt like there wasn't a chance for some voice. There was chance for voice, and there were a lot of emails going around, but I felt as your representative I owed it to you, and I felt that I owed it to the candidate to make sure that all the due diligence that could be done was indeed done. I then arranged to meet Shayla myself, and we met on a Saturday morning in Evanston. When I met Shayla, I met a dynamic, engaged woman who was committed, driven, and very capable. I talked to her about everything that I had heard. She was candid. She gave good answers to every question I asked. She struck me as someone of exceptional character. Most importantly, I gathered from her someone who knew how to unlock the very best in our children. I feel if we allow her to do her job, she'll be great at it. Therefore, I give her my support, and I ask that you give her yours. I vote yes.
Mr. Markison.
After a very thorough consideration and discussion about many matters, we believe a review of Dr. Holland's entire body of work, accomplishments, personal references, and testimonials best reflect her educational beliefs, professional expertise, and how she will serve Lake Forest High School. And all of the board has had the opportunity to review that in depth. In getting to know Shayla, and let me underscore, each board member met with her, I can say without hesitation that I believe her passion is the belief that all students should be valued and achieve at their highest level. This directly aligns with our district mission. She is a thoughtful, passionate educator. I've said that 1,000 times in the last 3 weeks. Her life and professional experiences are relevant to the challenges we face at Lake Forest High School. She loves learning in kids, and I would be proud if she were the principal of my daughter's school. For that reason, I vote yes in favor of Dr. Holland.
Motion carries.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for coming. We don't get this kind of turnout at regular board meetings. We have opportunities for, as Dave mentioned, for education, finance committee, and board appointments from time to time. And I want to invite all of you to give those opportunities some serious thought. You may get a different perspective from what you read online and over here. We have a few more issues. Excuse me, miss. We have some other business we have to take care of. May I have a motion to approve the human resources items as presented?
So moved.
Second. Second. May I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Schreiber?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mrs. Carling?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Motion passes.
The disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements for May 2015 on consent agenda will be tabled until the next board meeting. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including minutes of a regular meeting, May 12, 2015, minutes of an executive session, May 12, 2015, minutes of a special meeting, May 26, 2015, minutes of an exec session, May 26, 2015, disposal of audio recordings, November 5th, 2013. May I have a motion?
So motion.
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mrs. Carling?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Schreiber?
Aye.
Mr. Powers?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye. We have several FOIA requests that I believe are listed. Do I need to, in addition to the FOIA requests listed on the agenda, the district has pending FOIAs. The school district received FOIA requests on May 27th and May 29th from Mr. Dale Miller, requesting 14 categories of records related to the principal interviews and superintendent's contract. The school district responded to the requester that the request was voluminous, which grants the school district additional time to respond. The school district also received 2 FOIA requests from Mr. John Diefenbach regarding minutes of the May 26th special meeting and executive minutes of the May 12th and May 26th meetings. Public meeting minutes will be posted within 10 days of approval, and executive committee minutes are released twice per year as required by the Open Meetings Act. I have a couple of announcements. Monday, May 22nd, 2015, there will be a special meeting of the Board of Education at 7 p.m. Right here at the LFHS West Campus Boardroom. On Tuesday, July 14th, we will have a Board of Education meeting at 7 p.m. in the LFHS West Campus Boardroom. May I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest Community High School Board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Voice vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.